Genau, ich freue mich jetzt, den Jurgen Appelo, unsere erste Keynote für heute, anzukündigen. Jurgen, are you ready? Ah, there you are. Great. You can join me on the stage now. Jurgen is going to talk about versatile organization design with the unFIX model. Welcome, Jurgen. It's great you're here. I've heard that you visited us already in 2019.
I have, yes.
So it's really great that you're here again. And he's going to talk about a new model that we're really excited to hear about, because we do talk a lot about SAFe at Cyber Media. So I hope it's refreshing.
I might refer to it as well.
And if you have questions, so here in person or remote, please ask them in English, so Jurgen will understand them. All right, stage is yours.
All right, thank you so much. So, apparently I didn't do a bad job last time, so I was allowed to come back, or I'm allowed to try again, perhaps. That is another way of seeing it. And I'm happy to be here. Yesterday I was at Scrum Day Europe in Amsterdam. They planned me at the end of the day, so I was a little bit stressed because you planned me at the start of the day, and I'm like, oh my God. So I bought the plane ticket and the train ticket, agile. Keep your options open. But everything went fine. Sadly, I did not have time for my usual run in the morning, because I like running. Fortunately, you have great coffee. That is, I just thought to myself just now, it is, I don't want all the conferences to have decent coffee, because it means it's such a pleasant surprise when you find an actual barista at a place like this. Anyways, can we get the screen? Can we get the slides up here? Yeah, all right, there we go. So this is, I'm going to show you some pictures from my own town, Rotterdam. These are famous buildings, the Cube buildings, the Kubuswoningen in Dutch. I have a friend who lived here for a number of years. She said, you may not realize it, but I had to vacuum clean the walls. Because the dust settles on the walls on the inside. And there's no Roomba that is able to go up the walls still. So that's annoying. And it's a city of architecture. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures in a moment. And as I said, I like doing some running in the morning. Actually, I want to run a marathon. I want to run the Rotterdam Marathon. I've never ran a marathon before. So I feel I have to practice. I need to try and prepare myself. And did you know there are methods for that? Methods for preparing for marathons. Yeah. One of them is, for example, the Run Less, Run Faster method by Runner's World. It says 3 days of running and 2 days of cross-training, like biking or swimming or something like that. But I travel a lot. So cross-training, not easy for me. It's hard to travel around with a bicycle or a swimming pool on your back. So just running is easier for me. Doesn't fit my context. Another one is Hansen's marathon method. It says the longest run is 26 kilometers. It is controversial. Some of the experts say that's not enough. You need 30 plus. And I did 31 last weekend. That was my personal record. Yay! Yay! Thank you. So I can do 26 for sure. Will I survive 42? Well, probably I will. But I want to practice the 30 plus. So this is not useful for me either. And then there's this method, the running formula. I actually have this book. I bought it a number of years ago, and I leafed through it. It has page after page of rules. On Monday, you do 5 kilometers fast. On Tuesday, 10 kilometers, but slow. On Wednesday, you take a break. On Thursday, and so on. And I went through the book. I was, oh my God, this is horrible. And I felt all the motivation drained from me, basically. At the end of the book, I didn't want to go running. I wanted to go drinking, basically. It's no wonder the author's name is Jack Daniels, as you can see. Something going on there. Nobody doing any running. Everyone is drinking. So that's not my kind of method. What is it that the professionals do? Well, let's have a look. This is the world's fastest runner, Eliud Kipchoge. Can we get the sound up? Sound? You promised sound would work. God, you said it would work. You promised. That's why we need to do testing beforehand and not just say that it will work. Yay! Awesome. Thank you so much.
Kipchoge. Whoa! On his shoulder. 140. The unofficial time.
There's his wife.
Eliud Kipchoge storms into the history books in Vienna. 1:59.40, the unofficial time. The first man to run a marathon in under 2 hours.
All right, so unofficial fastest time, under 2 hours. And what is it that Eliud Kipchoge does? Well, from interviews, I understood he does easy runs, fast runs, long runs. Everyone does that in different combinations, for sure. 3 to 7 months of preparation. Okay, I can do that. Bread, fruit, veggies. I can do that. He eats ugali. That's an African maize flour porridge. I sense an opportunity here. The ugali method. The ugali framework promises you will run a marathon, ugali, every day. Strength and mobility exercises, I can do that. 1 hour naps, I can do that. 200 kilometers per week. Sorry, I got a brain freeze there for a moment. Reflection with a daily notebook, I can do that. And listen to the body, not to a plan. So what he does is he reflects every day on how it is going, how he feels, and he sort of makes the method on the fly. It emerges from daily practice. He does not have one set book to live by or something. Professionals don't follow methods, they make them around themselves, around their context. So I think method emerges from continuous retrospective. And not the other way around. It is not the method that should teach you the retrospective. No, it's the retrospective that results in a method. All right, you're probably wondering where is this all going? Let's move on. I would agree with that. I promise you some pictures. Oh no, first something else. Before the picture of my hometown. I went to visit this company, Hire, in China a long time ago, 10 years ago. I did a Management 3.0 course there, super awesome. I had a room full of Chinese people. There were 3 cameras in the back of the room. They recorded everything. I'm pretty sure they did their own classes after that in the company. I didn't care. I just had fun. And I had an interpreter next to me who translated everything in real time. And he called me Professor Jurgen all day long. I didn't mind. I'm a relaxed person when it comes to that. So Professor Jurgen this, Professor Jurgen that. And you may have noticed, but I like cracking a joke every now and then, also in my workshops. And I noticed people were always laughing in the room. The people in the workshop, they were laughing when I made a joke. And after a while, I got suspicious. What's going on here? They always understand my joke. I don't believe this. So at the end of the day, during dinner, I asked my interpreter, so what do you do when I make a joke in English and you cannot easily translate it into Chinese? And then he said, with a straight face, that, well, in that case, I say, Professor Jurgen just made a joke. Now we all have to laugh. Amazing. I love it. And the guy had no sense of humor, so I'm pretty sure he was honest. Anyways. So I met Mr. Jiang, who actually wrote the foreword for the Chinese translation of Management 3.0, big honor. And what they did at the time, they turned the company into a network. They fired all their middle managers, all of them, and turned it into 3,000 autonomous units. Now they are 4,000 10 years later. A bit like this.
Of Hire's reinvention is the change in organizational structure.
The hierarchical pyramid was pulled down and replaced with a network of more than 4,000 highly autonomous micro-enterprises. Typically, a micro-enterprise employs 10 to 15 people and functions as a separate business. These independent units contract with one another to deliver products and services.
So I was there, I did my workshop, and they had just done this 1 or 2 years before, and they asked me for advice. So how do you manage such a network? And I was like, I've never seen this before. Mr. Zhang wanted my help. I have no freaking clue. That's not what I said. I mumbled a bit. He didn't understand me anyway, so it didn't matter. But it was so inspiring, and it worked for them. They're scaling like crazy. I think that makes a lot of sense. Because in this book, Jake Galbraith, one of the world's famous organization designers, he said, we all want organizations that change as quickly as the business does, as the environment does. So why not design organizations to be constantly and quickly changeable? Well, networks are very changeable. Hierarchies are not. So that's like the holy grail, isn't it? How can we scale out and not scale up with our organization? Hire has done that. But for others, this is still a challenge. Well, I think for that we need to look at patterns. Patterns of other things that scale out instead of up, like cities, for example. Here's a famous book, A Pattern Language by Christopher Alexander, published in '72, if I remember well. It contains 253 patterns for urban design, architecture, urban planning. Very famous book. And for example, it has common sense patterns such as the town square or the public square. It makes sense to have some places in the city where the square or circle, fine, where roads converge so that cafes will pop up around that square and it will be a nice place for people to hang out as sort of a gathering place. Every city has this. It is a common sense pattern. Another one, oh, by the way, and this is my favorite building, perhaps one of my favorite buildings in my hometown, Rotterdam. I think it counts as a public square. It's a big square. Roads come out on this one, so I think we have one. Another pattern is this one, the promenade. Have a street or a couple of them through the city where people love walking around along the promenade. There will be places, things to do, activities, maybe shops along the side. And then again, people will come there and they will meet. It's a good pattern. Well, promenades, you see them everywhere. Actually, my hometown, Rotterdam, has what we call the Lijnbaan, which is actually the first pedestrian-only, car-free shopping street in the world. Yeah, we invented it. You stole it. I see the concept in every German city and everywhere else as well. We were the first. So it's a good pattern, the promenade. Third example is the children's way. From the book, it says, make sure that children can get through a city or a town without having to cross busy streets, with tunnels, little sideways, bridges, whatever. I couldn't find a picture, so I just put the picture of the awesome market hall in my town, because I think it's wonderful, don't you think? Because, well, you notice I like Rotterdam, right? This is a bit of a victory thing. The point here is that these are patterns. You don't have to implement them all. It's not the point to implement them all. But you just use them wherever they make sense to make things livable and scale out. A pattern language is a coherent set of micro-solutions that can be used in many ways depending on context. That's the key issue here. Maybe some of you remember this book, Design Patterns by the Gang of Four, very famous in the 90s. It contained patterns such as the singleton, the facade, model view controller. Pretty sure there are a couple of architects and designers here in the tech. Exactly, yes, and so on. 23 common sense patterns. You were not supposed to use them all, just use them where they made sense. Interestingly enough, and I remember this at the time, some architects went overboard and they implemented architectures, frameworks, including all the patterns. That was exactly not the point. of the book. They try to include all the patterns. Here you have a ready-made framework for you, so you can just install it and you have all the patterns there. And I was like, no, that's not the point. But anyways, so others have picked up on this as well. And then I thought, a year or more ago, what if I rethink things, look at what we are already doing in the Agile community and beyond, and just rephrase things as patterns, as good practices, get rid of the framework, blueprint thing, kind of thinking, but come up with patterns. The first one that I found is a very important one. Everything is optional, but I really, really recommend this one, is the base or the tribe. The Spotify model mentions it. Have a place of home for people where they feel that they belong to, a place to come back to. It cannot be very large, maybe up to 100, 150, not much bigger than that, because psychological safety and trust doesn't scale up to 4,000, 10,000 people. I worked for a big consultancy company once, a long time ago, as a .NET programmer. My brain was rented out to clients, and the only people I knew were my team, 3 other team members, and I knew my manager and the HR person. I didn't know anyone else at the whole company. I had no home. I had no base. I quit within a year. I didn't care whatsoever about that company. So the base is the group, the home that fuels all recognition and belonging. I think that's a good starting point, a useful pattern. And then within that base, within that tribe, you will probably have a couple of teams. Now, I like the word crew because the word team is a little bit overloaded these days. I once heard an executive refer to his company of 100,000 people as a team, and I thought, that's an enterprise, dude. That's not a team. But okay, so team is a bit of a confusing word. Crew is a bit maybe more accurate, but use whatever you want. Squads, pods, cells, I don't care. I use the word crew for the patterns that I borrowed. And I started with these 4. From Team Topologies, really good book. I love the book. Very great work that Matthew Skelton and Manuel Pais did. They had 4 patterns, and I borrowed them, but I had small details that I wanted to change a bit to fit my goal of making this widely available for all organizations. Because Team Topologies focuses on IT only, and they go deep there. I want to offer something that all organizations can use, whether they are IT companies or not. Well, first of all, stream-aligned teams, value stream crews, I call them. Everyone knows how that works. Agile teams, Scrum teams, it's all the same thing. The differences are in the details, nuances, it's not very important. So we cover that. They are the yellow ones that go across the base. But then the exceptions. Sometimes a team is not an agile team or a value stream crew. It is what Team Topologies calls an enabling team. For example, a couple of coaches who help the others provide value. Or maybe a few product owners who help those teams coordinate and their backlogs or something like that. So we draw them across purple. And I borrowed that pattern, but I changed one little detail because in Team Topologies, they say there should not be a permanent dependency on an enabling team. So by default, it should be a temporary relationship. And I agree with that in theory, but in practice, I'm a bit more relaxed. I have a spouse who does exercise on Mondays and on Fridays with a personal trainer. I can tell you, no personal trainer, no exercise. Nothing happens without the personal trainer. I have no idea what's going on in that relationship with the personal trainer. But anyways, so some people like having a coach. They like having someone who helps them raise the bar, who gives them exercises to do, and without them, they're not motivated that much. I don't want a personal trainer. I run on my own. But we're wired differently. And I see the same with teams. I think it's okay for a team to have a coach or whatever with a semi-permanent relationship because you like having someone help you raise the bar. It's fine. So the purple ones, they go across the others. And then the other exception, which team topologies calls the complicated subsystem team. Now this is an anti-pattern that we sometimes see is the component team in IT organizations, where there's a dependency on a component and only a few people can touch it. We don't want that. We don't want that. But the problem is when this component is maintained by a few people with rare skills, like cybersecurity skill, a video codec, data mining, artificial intelligence, whatever. You have 20 agile teams and only 2 people have these rare skills. Can you distribute those skills across those 20 teams and teach them all? No, that makes no sense. Because the book says, quite convincingly, it's just cognitive overload, basically. The cognitive load is too much for all those teams to absorb all that knowledge that they will rarely use. So, fine, the exception is then we have a complicated subsystem team, a few people manage it, and they hover around. Then I say, well, you know, then it's actually not about the component or the subsystem. The bottleneck is those few people with rare skills and capabilities. That's the point. And indeed, you cannot just download their brains and distribute that information experience across everyone. There's not enough work in the company for that. So, okay, we have a few experts who hover around and provide their capabilities wherever they are needed. Then it's a decent pattern. You don't want too many of them, but this is life as it is. So I call them capability crew, not complicated subsystem team. And then the last one, the platform team, the platform crew, same issue. I broaden it because this is very IT focused in team topologies. And I say not all platform teams actually offer IT services or APIs. It also could be human services. I was at a company in Poland a couple of years ago and was a future processing in Katowice. They had kindergarten on site. So in the morning, you could drop your babies, your toddlers before 9, before go to work. And at the end of the day, that was sort of the contract. That was this promise that they would still be alive. And if there's something wrong, we will ping you. That was the servers level agreement. We know where you are. If we need you, we'll let you know. Don't worry. The idea of the platform crews is to take worries off of the mind of the value stream crews who want to focus on value. So there are other companies who do massage, shopping, whatever, baristas on site. Those are platform services as well, in my opinion. So I don't think this is necessarily IT only. It can be anything. Human resources, if you rephrase it as people support, fits there quite nicely. And then the other things that I added, because 4 patterns I borrowed from team topologies, and I credit them all the time for their achievements. But it's not enough, in my opinion. I recently bought this phone, my lovely Google Pixel 6 professional pro phone, whatever it's called. I was a little bit annoyed that 1 month later Google announced the Pixel 7. God, so my bloody old Pixel 6 phone that I now have, when I installed it, I had to re-authenticate on every freaking app on the phone. You know how that works, right? You spend the whole weekend logging in on 100 and plus apps. And I had to do the same with the banking app because I had to make a payment to someone. So I had logged in and it said, oh, this is a new phone, please log in. Yeah, oh, by the way, your password is expired. Typical. They want me to change my password every 3 months. By the way, you have to do that on the website. Okay, so I open Chrome, I fill out my old password and the new ones twice, and then submit, and it said, you now have to validate this with the app on the phone. But the app doesn't work because I first have to change the password. But I cannot change the password because I first have to have a validated app. I was stuck. I was stuck in the middle of a fine app and a fine website. And I call that islands of agility. We have things agile over there, we have agile over here, and in the middle, life still sucks. And this is the typical outcome of agile transformations, in my opinion. And not only I observe this is from this book, Network Scaled and Agile. Examples abound of the crippling effects of agile business units that cannot work together to deliver a complete customer experience at the enterprise level. The customer is not interested in the app or the website. The customer wants to make a payment. That's the journey that I want to make a payment with whatever. And then we have touch points with apps and websites, maybe customer service and physical stores and whatever. The company offers lots of touch points with customers. The journey doesn't care about which product exactly is being offered. So this book suggests sometimes you need teams that go across everything and just watch the entire experience. No matter how many apps, websites, whatever your base offers, you need people looking at customer journey mapping, doing the data analysis, and see where Jurgen got stuck, trying to make one payment, and do something about that. So they inform the teams, the product owners, whatever you have there. And then I thought, okay, well, if this is the advice for customers, then maybe we should also have the same on the other side. I remember quite a few years ago in my keynotes, I made positive references to Schiphol Airport. At the time, our national pride. Now it is our national embarrassment. Not sure if anyone has flown through Schiphol, Amsterdam in summer. No, good. Well, be happy. It was a disaster. Hours, queues of 4 hours. People were standing outside. It was horrible. And why? Because Schiphol treated their suppliers badly. We never knew, as customers, of course, but they squeezed them as much as they could. And with 0-hour contracts and everything. So when COVID hit, nobody had any money, everyone left, because there was nothing to earn. So they went into restaurants and delivery services and whatever, all those people. And then when COVID was over, they didn't come back. Because why would you? Schiphol mistreats you. There are stories about that. And so the lines were very long, and ultimately who suffers? The customers. It just takes time, but ultimately customers suffer from bad treatment of suppliers. So I think it's a good pattern to have a partnership crew, someone who watches the gig workers, the freelancers, the contractors, whatever, anyone that you depend on for delivering great value, they should have a decent experience as well. And then who manages all this? Well, that's Manage with T4AT, the stuff that I did a couple of years ago. Manage the system, not the people. They sit over there. I even gave it the same color. Governance crew over there. And only there. That's the message to managers. That's your box. Stay out of everything else. You go there. Have fun. Playing there. Tweaking the constraints on self-organization, because self-organization without constraints is anarchy. Anarchy doesn't work. You need a couple of rules for the base to work, for everyone to have psychological safety and so on. So that comes from here, the rules. But then this should all be self-organizing in the base. And I call this unFIX. These are a couple of patterns to start with. There are quite a few more patterns, but this is the basic set, you could say, to start out with. And all of it is optional, but all of it is worth considering. Now, some people have asked me more than once, where's the customer in this picture? They go around looking for the customer. They want some kind of picture of the customer somewhere in this model, and I don't understand that. I mean, if you draw a picture, a blueprint or whatever of a church, is anyone asking, where's God? I don't see a picture of God in this picture. This cannot be a real church. I mean, seriously, you need to have a picture of God somewhere. Okay, where do we put God? On the left, on the right, up? Doesn't make sense to me. The church exists entirely in service of God, right? It's the same with the model like this. It is in service of customers everywhere. Because we have customers over there, the paying customers and users and society. That's what experience crew and the value stream crews are responsible for. But on this side, we have vendors and freelancers and partners. That's what they are responsible for. And then shareholders and government, they should be taken care of by the governance crew. Those are the customers of them. And then the platform crew and the facilitation crew, capability crew, they look internally. The other value stream crews are their customers. Customers are all over the place. Does it make the picture better to just draw smiley faces all over? I don't think so. So customers, of course, customers, oh my God. Sorry, that was a bit of a surprise. Let's have a look. So we have scaled agile framework. I heard the term was mentioned earlier at this conference. It is full of good practices, decent patterns. I might borrow a few in the future, but they present it as a framework, and that's where I disagree. That's where I have what I have a problem with, because Essential Safe says, for example, the basic starting point is the ART, the Agile Release Train. You must have an ART. If you do not have an Agile Release Train, you do not have SAFe. That is the whole idea. I say, well, that's just one pattern, one option of multiple. It means you have a fully integrated base with various teams locked together into a cadence with synchronous planning, synchronous release, and so on. That's fine. For certain contexts, it is fine. But there are three other versions, three other patterns, complementary patterns. The strongly aligned base would be like a microservices platform. Think Netflix, Amazon, whatever, LinkedIn. The teams can all release at their own cadence. Some do Kanban, some do Scrum, whatever, doesn't matter. They use each other's APIs, and they're very, very fast because they can release any subcomponent, any part whenever they want. There is no synchronous PI planning across the base. So a little bit more loose, but still strongly aligned around one product, one platform that they build. Loosely aligned would be like a consultancy company where I worked. Every team had a different customer. There was no shared backlog. Makes no sense. You have many small backlogs for different clients. You still need coordination of who is available when, for which customers. Because you need to sort of guesstimate that. And that's what traditional project management and account management could be responsible for. Who can help which client in which time frame? That needs to be coordinated. And then the last one, I was at Rovio, the makers of Angry Birds in Helsinki a number of years ago. They have all these small teams that make apps, mobile apps. Those compete with each other. They have sort of anti-dependencies, you could say, because the game players can play only one game at a time, and the teams are measured for eyeballs. They say basically the number of minutes that the players use the games, and management doesn't care who wins, as long as some of them are winners and rake in all the money. Then the others, fine. It's a friendly competition inside the base. And they learn from each other, and they have some shared services and joint customer experience teams. So that team knows when the customer goes from one game to another. They drop one and pick up another one. That's all in service of the whole business. So this is a fully segregated pattern. All of them can make sense depending on context. SAFe would just be this one, but it makes no sense to do SAFe in other places. Another example, large-scale Scrum. Not sure if it is allowed to use that name here, but I'll do it anyways. At the LESS website, there's literally the term they say, we want the teams to be long-lived. We potentially, but theoretically, we want them to be together forever. It says in quotes, granted, it says in quotes, forever. But just reading that makes me think, oh my God, I love my team members, but not forever. I would like a bit more variety in my work and work with different people every now and then. In that case, what LESS suggests is the steady team. Long-lived, the team itself, and team membership changes rarely. The permeability of the system is very, very low. High permanence, low permeability. But there are other options. Some companies do dynamic reteaming. For example, Redgate Software does this once every year. They have a ritual for that, for people to change team. And about 1/3 of them in a sort of open space setting chooses voluntarily to go work at another team. And it works pretty well for them. They love it. So people have a bit of variety in their work. That will be more dynamic. And if you do this more often, the permeability becomes higher, basically. Another option is the mission team. I will probably take the plane back home. I have a choice. I can also take the train. The airline crew is a mission team. They are together for a couple of hours. They are a team. And then it is a fixed team. They don't change team membership mid-flight. Bit difficult. James Bond can do that. Mission Impossible. But regular missions, the team stays the same for that short duration. And then there's other patterns. Sometimes you have these liquid teams where people come in and out, and the team itself is also short term. For example, the construction workers that worked on my house earlier this year. They did the windows and the facade. Every day it was different people that I was making coffee for. Every day it was a surprise. Who will be there? Will the cute one will be here today? Oh, fuck, no. Made banana bread for all the ugly ones. Just kidding. But that works in that industry. That is apparently the optimal approach, because they all experts, and the window maker cannot do carpentry and vice versa. So they come in whenever they are scheduled. But they were a team. They were always lunching together and so on. So different patterns. I feel it's a bit like Lego. I like using this metaphor. I think it works very, very well. But Lego is full of options, but you decide what to build. Right? Any fans of Lego in this room? Let me see some hands. I'm pretty sure we have Lego fans. Yay! But we are in Germany, so are there any Playmobil fans here in this room? Boo! Boo! Kill them! Oh, you sit right between two Playmobil. Oh, so sorry for you. My brother and I had this little bit of a fight going on when I was young. I was into Lego. I love Lego. And my brother was a Playmobil boy. And I just didn't understand it. I didn't get the whole idea of Playmobil. So for St. Nicholas, he got the house, the Playmobil house, and that was it. It was a house. That was the only thing he could do with it. When I got a Lego house, well, it might have been a house for one day. The next day, it was a spaceship. And the day after that, it could have been a dragon. It could be something different every day. That is what I loved about Lego. And my brother had a house. The only other thing it could be was a broken house. You take it apart, you have a broken house. It could never be a dragon. So I didn't really get that part, and I think it's a bit the same with unFIX.
Trick with the small cube, and when I take it apart, you can see how it's made. I used 4 2x2 plates and 4 of these 1x2 panels for the outside of the cube, and to connect them all together, I used a singular 2x2 tile. When you're finished, you have a perfectly shaped cube, and Minecraft Steve approves. I believe this is an illegal building technique, so be checking your window to make sure the cops aren't outside when you do this. You can also
I love it. That is an illegal building technique with Lego. I hope someday someone's going to make a video about the illegal building techniques with unFIX. But hey, it's your Lego box, so why not? You do with it. It's your organization. Play with it. A pattern language is an options list. It is not a shopping list. You're not supposed to do everything from this. You take the options that make sense in your context. Then a few people say, well, Jurgen, a framework can be a starting point. Okay, let's get that out of the way. I don't think so. I don't think so. I read quite a few running books, I think at least 15 by now, and I think the bad ones were about methods and frameworks. The good ones had a completely different message. They say, you know what? Some people waste all their time picking their favorite running method and trying to find out what are the best clothes to wear and what running apps and watches should I use and etc. And how do I prevent my nipples from burning and all that stuff. And they're not running. They're on the sofa reading books about running. They go to conferences about running. etc. But they're not actually running. And the running was just get out and run 3, 4, 5 times a day. Get out, run. And by making this a habit first, you will develop the method over time by applying some common sense patterns to make the running a better experience. And I think it's the same with methods and frameworks. And if you switch to patterns, make things a habit first. Do you have a habit of delivering value every week? Do you have a habit of optimizing for the experience of your customers and a habit of reflecting every day, as Eliud Kipchoge does? If you have that habit, the method will come. The framework will emerge around your work and within the context of your company. The framework doesn't create a habit. It's the habit that results in a framework if you do that well. And some people ask me, where is this already implemented, Jurgen? Well, give me a break. I started January 1st, so it is a little bit early to say these companies have picked up the unFIX model and started implementing, and these are the results. Yes, I have a lot of attention. I'm very happy about that. So there's experimentation going on. I'm super happy and honored. But the results still have to come in. However, there's a Miro template. You can design what you already have. And some companies have some very cool results. Pipedrive reached out to me and said, hey, what you show there with the unFIX model, that's basically what we have been doing for several years already. They have tribes, I call them bases, same thing, of about 20 people, 17 or 18 tribes. And if in each tribe they have a launch pad that a dynamic team, I would call that, focusing only on maintenance, and then a couple of mission teams, short-term, focusing on objectives. And then there's continuous rotation between them. So if you've been on maintenance for too long, you're expected to go on a mission. If you did a couple of missions, you're expected to go back to maintenance. And together the tribe is responsible for everything. So it still counts that you build it, you own it. But you have focus. For a while, you focus only on the maintenance stuff, and for a while, you can focus on new feature sets. So this is a combination of a dynamic team and a couple of mission teams within one base. Great solution, and works very well for them. Another example, Coolblue, Dutch company, second largest web shop in the Netherlands. They are in Germany now as well. I reached out to them because they do great stuff. And I noticed they have a net promoter score of 67. NPS score of 67. Does anyone have an NPS score that high here in this audience? Awesome. One finger. So that is amazing. And why? Well, one thing that I found is they have a big, fat experience crew. That makes a lot of sense. They will focus on the customer journey, the data they analyze, and so on. They want to know all the time what is happening with their customers, what is making them happy and unhappy. And then they inform the product owners. It's not the same thing. The product owners focus on product. They focus on experience. Outward looking. Works for them, and they call them domains instead of bases. They have 30 of them, all same thing. And they're steady teams. They're Scrum teams. They stick together for a long time. And then Hire. Let's finish with Hire before we have some time for questions. Hire has these 4,000 micro enterprises, and from what I saw from a distance in the articles and the interviews, those micro enterprises specialize in certain kinds of work. Some of them do platform stuff, Internet of Things stuff. Some of them focus on customer journeys. They know everything about customers. Some of them do facilitation. They help those micro enterprises to find each other and contract with each other. The same patterns emerge at the next level up. It's amazing. It's the same thing. It's almost fractal, you could say. That's how the network works. I have people sending me pictures from all over the world, which is super cool. But I want to end with this story from Hire. So I arrived there in Qingdao 10 years ago at the airport. There was a limousine waiting for me. There was no limousine here in Wiesbaden, by the way. May have missed it, but I had to walk all the way from the train station to here. And it was raining, for God's sake. But anyways, so I got into the limousine, and there was this picture, this sticker on the door of two nearly naked guys, like this. And I saw the picture in several other places in the car, and I was like, okay, odd. I wanted to take a picture of the sticker and send it back to my husband and say, oh, this country is not what I suspected, but fascinating. Anyways, so we went to the company campus, and at the gates there was a big statue of the two nearly naked guys, meters high, and I was in the car like, okay, fascinating. And then the guy next to me, do you like it? Well, it's cool. It's nice. Yeah. Would you like to know the story? Oh, by the way, and he said, and this is our company logo. Okay, interesting. Would you like to know the story? I said, hell yes, tell me the story. I want to know the story about the two naked guys. So, the story is as follows, super cool story. Haier was started as a company many years ago. They made fridges, ice cream and ice makers. So, it was really bad stuff. It was terrible quality. They had refrigerators that didn't work. Basically, the customer had to make them work after buying them. That was how bad it was. And Mr. Zhang was sent there from the Communist Party to make those machines, to turn the company around. And the first thing he did was he collected 39 machines, the story says, that didn't work, that were supposed to be delivered, and he ordered the factory workers to destroy them with sledgehammers. He said, that was the message, we're not going to make crap anymore. It's a famous story in China. They have one of the sledgehammers in the museum, in the company museum. Not kidding. He said he wanted to send a message, no more crap, because otherwise the company goes bankrupt. From now on, high quality, that's what the thumb up is for. And it took them time, but over time, Haier became better at quality machines. And they also delivered more and more products to Europe, which is the German boy with the blonde hair. Asian guy, German guy, and we're friends. We're friends. We make ice cream makers, high quality stuff, so that the Germans can enjoy it. Yeah, can enjoy the ice cream. Awesome. And we're friends. Isn't that cool? And the reason they're wearing almost nothing is because Haier is based in Qingdao, which is in the northeast of China, which is famous for its beaches. Ah. Now everything makes sense. Now everything makes sense. So, of course, there's a message here. I love the story behind the picture. The picture doesn't translate well to Europe. We have different connotations, and that's fine. But we understand the meaning behind it. And, okay, maybe we need different pictures. Maybe we need another visualization to explain the same thing. And it's the same with the unFIX model, I think. I had some people tell me, oh, Jurgen, this is too colorful. I cannot show this to my managers. All those colors, they can't take that serious. And someone asked me, why are they laughing? Why are they laughing in the mouth? Nobody's laughing in my company. why is this one laughing? Why is this one crying? I'm just having a bit of fun here. And expressing that this is about humans, human experience. There are emotions. Yes, just let's take that for granted. But okay, if you need to change the picture a little bit, to have a visual that resonates better with your managers, go ahead, adapt it. Because it's not about the picture, okay? It's about the idea, the philosophy of the patterns. It's about the idea of continuous reflection and making things a habit, and then the framework will grow around you. If you want to know more about Haier, I recommend this book, Start a Factory, by two Dutch guys. It just came out last month. Super interesting about how to grow a network instead of a hierarchy. may be allowed to say, I have a couple of workshops coming up, Amsterdam, Hamburg, Stockholm, Milan. So if you're interested and dive deeper into this, happy to invite you there. So bottom line is, make your own method using patterns. Thank you so much. Have a fun day here at Tool for Agile team.
Test. There we are. Yeah. Thank you very much. It was really refreshing. Following the chat, a lot of people actually really enjoyed it. You have to deep dive into that later. Cool. Read all the comments.
Yep.
We already have a lot of questions from the audience remote. I will start with the first one, and then we give you the opportunity to ask questions as well. There's someone here that already tried to introduce the model to his peers and boss, but it was difficult because they struggled with the wording, terms, etc. So do you have any idea how to introduce it? They are working in a matrix, working in projects. We are a matrix working in projects. Sorry, matrix organization probably.
Okay. So I'm trying to get the essence of the question here, but I sense two things: how to communicate this, and what about the matrix? So how to communicate this? The patterns need to have a name, but as I just said, you are allowed to name things your own way. If you prefer to talk about squads or instead of crews, or agile teams instead of value stream crew, that's fine. It's about the thinking behind it, right? That is the whole point. Just in the model, they need to have a name. So use your language. That is one thing I learned the last 15 years. Use the language that your management is familiar with and that resonates with them, including colors, if possible. So think from their perspective. But about the matrix is a problem. I have not gone into that topic. Matrix organizations basically only work at small scale. And they bog things down. You get big, fat middle management layers. The Spotify model is a matrix structure. So one thing that I try to do is to cut the matrix, and that makes things more difficult. Yes, you have to spin things off and turn something into a base, a micro enterprise. As Mr. Zhang said to those 4,000 managers who led those units, you are now a CEO. You are a CEO inside the large, you run your own little company. You do not have a matrix structure around it, because that bloatens the whole organization. And that makes it more difficult to go that way, but also cleaner. It's like ripping the Band-Aid off, basically.
All right. Another question from our remote listeners. So the unFIX model as presented is basically a cookbook out of which I can create all the other scaling frameworks and more. For most organizations, understanding even one framework is too much of a challenge. How to start your model in an established organization without going crazy due to the sheer amount of options?
Right. Well, how do you start a new city? You begin with one house and one coffee bar, I suggest. It's the same. How do you start with Lego? You have a big Lego box. What do you start building? Well, you need to familiarize a little bit with the possible patterns. Some are easy, some are difficult. I would suggest to begin first with a forum. That's my word for a guild. Because it's very easy to implement. Nobody feels attacked. No manager feels attacked by introducing a forum where people gather around a topic. Relatively easy. So start with the patterns that are simple, the low-hanging fruit, they call it sometimes, and then the more difficult ones that come later. But in change management, they call that the quick wins. You need to have a feeling of victory, of introducing some patterns that are relatively easy, but then you can raise the bar for yourself. Don't try to implement the whole framework from the start. Don't do any analysis paralysis and then roll out what you have designed.
All right. So there's the first question from the audience over there.
Yep.
I'll just wait for the microphone, please. Thank you. It should be turned on, not down.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. How is your feeling about the last years going more remotely? especially when it comes to things like forums, has it become more challenging, or are there even opportunities in that situation with a lot of remote work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Things are changing, but I haven't got the hang of it yet. How things post-corona versus pre-corona are different. Hybrid working is going to be the default for many organizations. So we need to learn how to evolve the structures around that concept, for sure. And that does mean that we are probably going to need more experience with dynamic teaming. Because that seems to make sense in that kind of context. It is why I made that a basic part of the model, to allow for reteaming and give different options for that. In terms of forums, I actually think this is the necessary glue to keep things together. Because one danger with remote teams and hybrid teams is that the social cohesion starts to break down. And you can capture that, you can mend that with forums by having reasons for people to get together around a certain topic and to share ideas. The way to lead them, the way to moderate them, that's a challenge. We need to learn. And I do not have recommendations there at this point, but I'm sure the community as a whole will figure that out. But I do believe the forum is a fundamental concept that we need to repair the social disintegration that is taking place in companies. So that's why it is also a pattern. A good comment.
Me? I will ask another question from the chat. You mentioned the different teams earlier. You said HR could be a platform team, but isn't this a shared service?
Depends on how large the organization is. So if your organization is relatively small, I don't know, maybe 50 people or something, you practically probably have one base. And then HR could be one person, maybe two or something, and they would provide a service, indeed, as a platform team, platform crew. If it grows larger, then you start to have multiple bases. At some point, you'll have to split into multiple units. Then also the HR team could pull out and become its HR base. They will start servicing multiple. As in the example of Hire. Hire has done this to the extreme, where 10 years ago they already told me we have multiple HR units, multiple HR micro-enterprises who have their own specializations, but basically they also compete with each other. Can you imagine that? Multiple HR departments competing with each other for the privilege of servicing the micro-enterprises. Now that's innovative, right? That's what we would like. So they see the actual factories as their customers. They don't see the CEOs as their customers. No, the factories and so on. They need to offer them good people and help them with talent development. So they will pull out at some point and form their own unit and see themselves as having customers that they need to service.
Thank you. Do we have another question from the audience over there?
It's not a question, it's a comment, because I was one of the people asking in your webinars for the customer.
All right, awesome. Yes. Well, thank you for the question.
And now I commented. So the question is, where is God in the church? The comment was, we have discussions on output and outcome, and I miss the outcome perspective in the framework.
First of all, it's not a framework, it's a pattern library, it's a small detail. And the outcome, I call it experience. But we probably mean the same thing. I just emphasize the experience part. I spent, I think, 10 minutes on that. How I had a bad experience with an app and a website. And that's what ultimately it is about. It's the human experience of your customers. I don't care about products. I care about the experience. That needs to be good or not. I listened to music this morning and with my new Google Pixel buds, and every time I eat something, they pop out of my ears. That's annoying. That's experience. That's an experience thing. I now worry about eating while I'm listening to music, because every time the buds are all over the train station. That's an experience thing, and that is an outcome in your terminology. I think that we need to care about. We don't care about the products as customers. We care about the experience that the products have for us. So I'm still not really sure about the earbuds that I bought last week. But it's a good comment. Experience, but also that's what the platform crews are responsible for. The experience of the employees. Developer experience is a hot topic nowadays. It's what can the infrastructure people offer to the developers on the agile teams as an experience of using the APIs and etc. The infrastructure. That's experience too. Thank you.
All right, another question from our remote listeners. A lot of votes for this. How do you suggest to handle disciplinary leadership when unfixing your organization?
How do you suggest...
do you want to read it?
Handling disciplinary leadership.
How do you suggest to handle
disciplinary leadership? I don't know what disciplinary leadership is. Does that mean it's controlling, command and controlling? Is that disciplinary?
Well, I can wait a second for the chat if there's something popping up. We'll go on with the next question. So whoever asked us, you can just clarify in the chat and we'll get back to it.
Never heard of.
It goes a bit to the first question I asked about establishing the unFIX model. On the first view, your unFIX looks heavy, like say for Spotify model, but both are now established and used. So we can see them as usable despite of real issues. Your model looks heavy as well. What are your arguments that it might be usable and established as well? Meaning, how can I convince my company to use it?
Right. Well, if you have a large Lego box of 100 kilos, it is very heavy. It's full of options. Now, you have two things you can do. You can say, I want a smaller Lego box with only 10 pieces. Makes it very simple. But then you can only make one thing. It reduces all the options for you. It reduces your chance of surviving. In systems language, they call this the law of requisite variety. Your system needs to have sufficient variety in the box to handle all the different contexts in which it needs to survive. So yes, the Lego box, the unFIX box, is going to have more and more patterns in order for that box to offer useful solutions for people in different contexts. That is true. What I need to learn with my team is how to present this in a simpler way. I'm making progress there, but we're not there yet, of course. For some people, the Lego box, is overwhelming. But it's not a framework. Because a framework suggests this is the blueprint to implement. And we're going to start a rollout implementation process. And you'll need to learn all those parts. That is not what it is. We have a box of options. You can pick one. You can pick three. And yes, you'll have to learn what things to pick in which context. Well, we can offer information about that. So that is a job for me and my team. How can we make usage of the box of options simpler? So that you can make your own simple little models in your context. But the box has to be quite large for all those different organizations out there.
All right, thank you. We'll go on to the question again, and then one more question from our audience here. So what they meant was basically a top-down management.
Right. So leadership. Command and control. That's what we guess. So how to deal with command and control? Well, you cannot change an organization if you cannot change the way it is managed. That's the way it is. So either you have to manage up and convince managers, and I've been talking about that for 15 years with Management 3.0. You have to understand their language, you have to understand what is the pain for them, what is their experience. I had a CEO who was very command and control, micromanaging, but he had reasons for that. There were certain things that we had to fix for him to stop command and controlling. So I had to be more empathic towards our managers and not just put blame on them, but also put blame on ourselves. Because our websites went down at 11 o'clock in the night, and guess who the customers called? They called the CEO, not us. So of course he was frustrated. Of course he felt he had to intervene more often. We had to fix that issue. So empathize with the manager. They are humans too. They have an experience, and That is the starting point for change, but it is hard. Sure, it is easier to start from scratch elsewhere.
All right, thank you. So, do we have another question from the audience?
I see two hands.
Oh, someone else?
Over there.
Oh, over there, in the back. Sorry.
Hi, hey. Jens. I like the question before also about the experience crew. I think it's a very important point to focus on customer needs. Still, I'm a bit struggling with the proposal to separate that in that experience crew. So my question would be, wouldn't it still make more sense to have someone in the mission team also taking care for the customer view, to have that customer-centric mission more established directly in the mission team?
Yeah, well, everything is optional. So in many cases, you may not need a separate experience crew. I think by default, as a starting point, you probably don't need one. You can do this with your agile team. However, things become more complicated, more complex, even if you're offering multiple things to customers. Then it is very difficult for someone who's working on one agile team, on one mission team, to understand not just the thing that they are offering as a team, but the more holistic picture across all the others. You basically have to, you literally have to step out of your own team and see things from the customer's perspective, and then understand that you are sub-optimizing. They gave me examples at Coolblue of teams sub-optimizing, doing a great job offering their stuff to the client, and then deteriorating the experience somewhere else. Because everything is connected. You optimize something here, this metric goes up, and then two others go down somewhere else. And that is something the experience crew is responsible for, that balancing act of the entire experience. It is possible for people on single teams to look at it, but it is hard. So it might be easier for you to have others with customer journey mapping experience, data analysis, and so on, to look at it and just tell people, look, you did a great job optimizing your part, but over there, things got worse. So how do we balance that back? That's the idea.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. I think you can give Jürgen a great applause for his
Awesome. Thank
talk.
you.